Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Monday, February 10th. This is episode 170. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for winning the Super Bowl, absolutely crushing my wife and the Kansas City Chiefs in the process. So that was an unhappy day in the Roy household. Don Harris, Chuck McGinnick, back and better than ever. Guys, what's up?
Man, can you? I can't believe how fast January, February are blowing by. It's February 10th. Man, you're gonna look up. There's Valentine's Day, and then
pitchers and catchers report.
All-Star game.
Yeah, this week, right?
Man,
Yes,
it's
2 more
flying
days.
By.
I know. Now I'm turning all my attention to college basketball and just seeing. And sure enough, they were going to have a 1 versus 2 matchup on Saturday. Auburn and Alabama, first 1-2 matchup in SEC history on Saturday. So
Wow,
that'll be
Iron
a really big
Bowl
game.
of basketball.
Exactly. So, yeah, you're right, though. Everything is flying by. We're already at the All-Star break for NBA. It seems like that just started, but here we are.
Flying by.
Got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4 Fox SA. Download, rate, review the podcast version if you're so inclined. Wherever you get your podcast, we're going to talk a lot about the Super Bowl today. Chiefs lost 40-22 to the Eagles. In a game that was not that close. No, it was 34-zip at one point. So we'll hear from both teams what went wrong for the Chiefs and why seeing the Eagles win a Super Bowl for the second time in 8 years shows the massive chasm between them and their division rival, the Dallas Cowboys, in terms of talent and in terms of team building. We'll also get into the Spurs. They've played 3 games with De'Aaron Fox, all of them decided by 1 point, 2 of them not going the Spurs' way. So we'll talk about that, what the team needs to do to try and turn a couple of those games around, especially when they're playing teams like Charlotte. Seeing Luis over here try and do things with his left arm. He just got back from having his shoulder surgery, so he can't really reach up and press one of the buttons. Anyway, so no trivia today. Let's get right to the Super Bowl. The Eagles completely crushed the Chiefs yesterday.
I got trivia for you.
Let's hear it.
How many Super Bowls did the Dallas Cowboys win in New Orleans?
They won 95, right? Or no, 78. 78 was the only one they won in New Orleans.
Against?
The Denver Broncos, 27-10.
Super Bowl 12 in the Superdome. They won one other.
95 was in Tempe. 92 was in Pasadena. 93
Atlanta.
93 was in Atlanta, so it would have had to have been the other one. The 68?
Super Bowl 6.
71.
Yeah. In New Orleans at Tulane Stadium outdoors.
Yeah, but the 78 was the first one in the Superdome.
Correct.
Yeah.
The Golden Richards game.
Golden Richards received a halfback pass from Robert Newhouse. Super Bowl 6, Mike Ditka caught a touchdown pass from Roger Staubach.
Only reason I knew that is because last night I was looking at all of it up, so it's fresh in my brain.
Well done.
Because I'm a nerd like that, and while I'm sitting there completely tuned out of the game because it's 34-0, I'm like, when was the last time?
Also, Super Bowl 12, Butch Johnson's touchdown catch would not be a catch today. The one where he dives over the goal line and drops it.
I don't remember that
He
play.
lays out for a touchdown, catches it while he's in the air. He crosses the plane, and then when he lands, he loses the ball. Today, that would not be a catch.
So let's hear from both squads before we get into the game too much. For this, you're going to hear in this order for people who are listening on the podcast version of this. It's going to be Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid.
Tom Guerrero in the house.
Shout out Tom Guerrero.
Yeah, I think we just stuck to our process. I think a lot of things got blown, kind of 2 and 2. The outside world, we just, has had an opinion on what was going on and everything there, and we just stuck to our process and got better from it. Did some things a little differently, got better from a couple things. I think at the end of the day, you saw this team embrace adversity throughout the entire year. Now, it's hard to say that when you won 16 out of your last 17, but there was adversity. There's adversity constantly. And I think we did a good job of embracing that, the ups and downs of a season, and getting better from the things that we went through.
Still processing it. It's been a long journey. It's been a journey of ups and downs and highs and lows. And, I've always stayed true to it in the end, and having this vision of just being the best that I can be, and that evolving over time into this desire and this flame inside to win. And you don't do great things without the guys around you. So the effort, the work, always leaning on that, trusting in that, and trusting the process, and staying the course, and sticking to the script.
And I can't make bad plays worse. And I think that's something that you saw today is that there was times when guys aren't open and I need to throw the ball away or check it down and let other guys make plays happen. Sometimes I get in where I want to make a big play to kind of spark us. And that's something that I've dealt with my entire career. And if I don't show that I will take what's there in the game, the defenses are going to stay in the coverages that they're in. And I think they only blitzed like one time this entire game today. So they were going to make me be a fundamental quarterback from the pocket and take what's there. And that stuff I have to get better at.
We can learn from this. That's how these roll. Yeah, so we've got a great nucleus of players, and so like we've done before, we work on the things that we're not doing well at, whether it's coach, as a coach or a player, and we all take responsibility for it. And you listen to Pat, you listen to these other guys. That's how they are. They're stand-up guys with it. The coaches are stand-up about it. They did a better job than what we did, and that starts with me. And it's hard to face. It's hard to look at because all the time you spend, but you do that, and then you get better. That's what you do.
All right, guys, general thoughts on the game before we get into specifically one side or the other.
Well, as we talked about going into it, you didn't want to bet against Patrick Mahomes because he's such a clutch player in the past. But we did say wouldn't be surprising if the Eagles dominated either. And for me, the takeaway afterwards is just like football still comes down to the big boys up front.
Mm-hmm.
And they only rushed 4, the Eagles, all game long. And those 4 dudes just dominated the Chiefs' offensive line. On the other side, the Eagles' offensive line has dominated all year long. Saquon didn't have a great game, but they did enough to protect Hurts, let him make plays, and the trenches won that game on both sides. And like you said at the beginning of the show, it goes to show you what a great job Howie Roseman has done in building that roster out. I know I cringed a couple years ago or last year when they drafted Jalen Carter from Georgia with like the 7th overall
pick. I think.
Yeah, this kid should have been the number 1 pick, but he had like a DWI or he was in that racing thing at Georgia. And when the Eagles got him, I just went, oh my goodness. Like the Cowboys have to be really, really distraught because that dude is a dude. And he's got some friends up there too. And they just got after 6 sacks on Mahomes. I mean,
their entire defense is basically just Georgia's defense the last 4 years.
Yeah, they just
Right.
they dominated.
Chuck, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, they have that whole gaggle of players that come from that Georgia winning.
Nolan
right?
Smith, Kobe Dean, Jalen
It
Carter.
really was masterful how they played that defensive line, right? I mean, time and time again, we saw the edge guys not only rush, but hold the edge so that Mahomes couldn't break outside. And then the interior guys would run twists based on which way Mahomes was floating, left or right. For these guys to get after Mahomes that many times, and how many times have we said during these playoff runs for the Chiefs, they just don't beat themselves? Well, they beat themselves yesterday. They had half dozen penalties. They turned the ball over 3 times. But for that defense to put that kind of a game together, it was a magnificent work of art. I don't want to, bury the Chiefs, right? They had one bad game. They were probably due. I mean, we were talking beforehand, right? The last time these guys lost a legitimate double-digit game was last year against Denver. They've done it differently through all of their Super Bowl runs, although these last 2 seasons, these are defensive-based teams, right? The Chiefs probably realize they're going to have to go out and get some wide receivers, that you can't just keep churning and burning these veteran wide receivers. And in a big game like this, with a team that has a good scheme, there's some things they're going to have to change, obviously, if they want to be as good as the Eagles, because obviously they weren't even close yesterday.
Yeah, let's start out with the Chiefs side of this, because I do think that's the more interesting side here. I think everyone was surprised because you haven't seen them do that. You haven't seen Patrick Mahomes have that bad of a first half. That might have been the worst half of football he's played since he's been in the NFL.
But
He threw the ball directly to Cooper DeJean for the pick six. He didn't even, I mean, Zach Bond was just sitting there, throws it right to Zach Bond for the other interception. Balls are bouncing off of DeAndre Hopkins' hands, and Travis Kelce isn't adjusting to the back shoulder like he usually is. Something was just off.
Yeah.
And credit to the Eagles for making him uncomfortable. But that was, when you go 3 and out on every single possession outside of the first play, which was 11 yards to Juju Smith-Schuster, that was your first down, and only first down in the first half. You put yourself so far behind the 8 ball, and something was just not right.
But didn't we see all year long that the Chiefs were vulnerable? They would eke out wins with a blocked field goal at the gun or a late touchdown, and everybody's claiming that, it's Mahomes' greatness in the comebacks, and it is. But you don't have to come back if you dominate. That's, that was my old take with when they said Tony Romo has this many comeback wins in the fourth quarter and Roger Staubach. I was like, yes, because Roger was always up 30 points. It's like he never had to come back. So, and when he did, his comebacks were in playoff games and memorable, or Thanksgiving Day games too. So I think the Chiefs this year were a little more vulnerable, whether that's talent, whether that's roster build, whatever, than they had been in the past. Shout out Xavier Worthy, University of Texas.
Yeah,
First Longhorn ever to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
The most quiet 8 reception, 157 yards, and 2 touchdown performance in Super Bowl history because it was all in garbage time. Chuck, do you think there's something to this being their 3rd straight, having to go to 3 straight, not having to, but going to 3 straight Super Bowls, winning the past 2. Now you go to your 3rd one. Mentally, they'll never admit this, whether it's Travis or whether it's Patrick or whether it's Andy. They'll never admit it. But do you think that somewhere it just gets to be an arduous and tiring, exhausting process?
Well, I mean, you think about how many extra games they've had to play, right, over this Mahomes Super Bowl winning era. It's significant, right? And I think if you were to say who was the hungrier team yesterday, clearly it was the team that hadn't been there, done that. So, maybe some things to that. And, you can say the time off or whatever it was, but, it's little things that you watch. It's the Mahomes body blows that he took early. He got his head bumped on the ground early in the game. During one of the interceptions, it looked like he had somebody drill his knee, and those repeated blows, at some point they're going to take the effect. And same thing with, you said Kelce too. Does that guy even look like remotely what he looked like a couple of years ago? He doesn't look like he has his legs underneath him.
Right.
He'd be the guy that would truck you. Or,
looks like he might retire, right?
So, I mean, I don't know if he's going to or not, but I mean, he doesn't look like this same guy.
Yeah. I mean, the whole offense just didn't look in sync. And I do think there's something to being exhausted though, because we saw in 96 when the Bills got to their 4th straight, they were done. They just were completely exhausted from doing it over and over and over and over again.
And they were aging out.
And they were aging out as well. And so were the Chiefs. I mean, Travis is not the same player he used to be, which I think even he would be the first to admit that. But it's so hard to get to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
To go back and back and back. It has to wear on you, especially with the furthest or the less, I mean, I guess the shortest postseason run that these guys have had in the last 8 years was to an AFC championship game. I mean, they've gone to the AFC championship game every single year. It has to get exhausting. And I think it looked like it in the first half of the game.
Mentally and physically. I mean, the beatings that you take in those playoff games is different than the physicality that you're going to see during the regular season too. So good point.
Last time we saw the Chiefs lose a Super Bowl was to Tom Brady and the Bucks. And in that game, they got dominated up front. They went out in that offseason, got Joe Thuney, got Orlando Brown, drafted Creed Humphrey, shored up their offensive line, rattled off 2 straight Super Bowls. Once again, this time, though, it came down to the big guys up front, just like you were talking about. Joe Thuney is not a left tackle. He is a left guard. He is a left guard. He is an all-pro left guard. He is maybe one of the best left guards in the entire NFL. But you don't have a left tackle out there, and you have to move your all-pro guard to a position he's not comfortable with, and you put Caliendo then in there in the left guard, and this is what happens when you don't trust your offensive
Didn't
line.
who'd they lose? Who was the big offensive lineman they lost?
On the left side?
2 weeks ago against the Ravens, I think. He was either the center or the right guard, I think.
I'm not
Like,
sure.
he was a really good starting.
The
lineman.
biggest problem that they've had all year is that their left tackle sucks. And so they had to move over Joe Tooney to the left side to make up for that, because he was a better left tackle, even though he's a guard, than their tackles were. And so it just disrupted their entire offensive line. But as far as Philly goes, they played a flawless game. Vic Fangio, hats off. I wore a Bronco hat today in honor of him because he was a good head coach for us, but he's an even better person and defensive coordinator. I'm happy for Vic. And he called a flawless game, and the players, especially the defensive line, executed it to perfection.
Yeah,
It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the box score. If you would have told Chiefs fans that you would have held Saquon with the postseason that he's had to 2 points something a carry, you would have probably liked your chances. But you can't do what they did on offense, which was not move the ball. They didn't have even 300 yards of total offense, and then to turn it over like that, and just too many mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, coming into this game, I thought it was going to go one of two ways. It was either going to be a close Chiefs win, or it was going to be an Eagles bludgeoning. There was no way the Eagles were going to win a close game, and there was no way that the Chiefs were going to win a blowout. And sure enough, one of them happened, and it wasn't the one I expected. I expected a close Chiefs win because that's just what they do.
Well, I mean, when's the last time you saw those guys get bullied like they got yesterday?
They got completely
It's been a
manhandled. It's probably been since the last Super Bowl. Since Super Bowl was it 56 that Brady won? Because it would end up being 56, or 56 or 55, whatever it was.
Can we talk about the
No,
huge topic of the Super Bowl that I think Chuck and I both are in the same camp on this?
you're gonna say the halftime show?
Not just the halftime show. Somebody needs to have an explainer for those of us 50 and over of what we missed. Like,
It's
so
okay
I
to
watched
say 60 and over.
I watched Kendrick Lamar, and I think his raps are good, and I like his beats, but I have no idea what
the beef is between him and Drake.
That and what he said with the American flag. And I'm reading all this stuff about Kendrick Lamar made a great statement about America and where it is in the situation. And boy, he killed Drake, and Drake was left hanging out there. And I never heard the word Drake.
Well, they've got beef.
I know they got a beef,
but I honestly, we need to call Jordan up because she could tell you. Kendrick Lamar is not my kind of music, so I didn't even watch the halftime show. I'll be completely honest with you guys.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's very hit or miss. It's people my age or younger loved it, and people your guys' age or older didn't seem to like it. I
didn't hate it. I just thought, and this is not a criticism, I just thought it wasn't, for a Super Bowl, it wasn't mass appeal. Like, it had its audience, but it left a lot of people out.
Bob, what do you think of the Super Bowl halftime show?
Didn't watch it. It was a great time to get a bourbon.
See, that's what I was doing.
And I'm holding out for Gojira to be able to play the halftime show, and then I'll watch, because I generally don't watch them anyway. I'm usually like Bob, going and doing stuff.
I just said,
again, Chuck's music, great.
Is.
No massive.
You don't know who Kendrick Lamar is?
Well, I mean, I've heard of him, but if you ask me what's one song that Kendrick Lamar sings, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
You didn't watch. I'm guessing you didn't watch the Grammys either. Then
no.
He won 5, so.
But it means nothing.
Oh, Gojira won a Grammy. So do they get the next Super Bowl?
He won 5 and 1 Grammys. It was for a song not like us.
He's got 22.
Yeah, it's insane.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing though on the Grammys. There, Sierra Farrell.
We're gonna keep getting off the track.
That's for real.
Yes.
That's for real.
Spinning off the rails on a crazy train.
Halftime show was a good time for me to get a tequila, just like him. It was his time to get a bourbon. But
best commercial, you guys.
I thought stuck out above all the rest.
What's that?
Was Ring the Bell, the Pfizer ad where the kid.
Oh yeah.
Halfway through that, I was like, "This commercial's amazing." Just halfway through it, I was already.
Yeah.
I was confused why the University of Wyoming paid $8 million for a Super Bowl halftime or a Super Bowl ad when they can't put $8 million into their NIL. That's what I was confused
I didn't
about.
see that one. I thought the When Harry Met Sally remake was cute.
Yeah, that's good. What about you, Chuck?
Wasn't there a Silent Bob?
I wish Bob would go silent.
He showed up in the
donut commercial.
In the donut commercial with the brothers.
So I didn't see that during real time, because usually when it's a commercial break, that's usually when I go to the bathroom. I'm not sitting around, it's just not me.
It was
not
the
a
first.
huge-
It was the
It's
first
a
break.
commercial.
I'm not
to
a huge
commercial. I
commercial
don't care
guy
how entertaining
I
it
mean,
is.
I'm there for football,
Silent
man.
Bob doesn't even look like Silent Bob anymore.
How about the shout out for Pato Award by Fox though?
That
pretty
was cool.
Luis, you got a favorite commercial? Budweiser commercial. Was that just you going to
Where the horse
to the
rolls the
kitchen?
keg into the bar with his nose.
Alien was also kind of cool.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Which
fair.
one?
Where the alien gets squashed by the door.
Oh, that
Alien
was
gets
cute.
squashed by the door. Yeah, that's good. I want to talk about the Philly thing real quick before we get to the Spurs. The only thing that I was thinking when Philly was just dominating this game is, wow, the Cowboys are behind.
Everybody's behind.
That was my only
Yeah.
thought was, God, the Cowboys are not in anywhere close to this, especially us covering the Cowboys as we do. It's like, that was my only thought was, holy crap, they're screwed.
So the question is, Ian Rappaport reporting yesterday that there have been or may have been internal discussions at the Cowboys about trading Micah Parsons for a king's ransom. Is trading Micah Parsons the only way that the Cowboys can add enough pieces to kind of start to fix their roster problems?
Yes.
I think it would be a step in the right direction.
I don't know if it's the only way. I think it's the quickest way. I think it's the only significant way.
And back when we were talking about this a year ago, did the Cowboys make a mistake? We always said they could sign two of the three probably.
Mhm.
It's going to end up being CD and Micah instead of it's going to end up being CD and Dak instead of
Micah,
CD and Micah.
I think Philadelphia is just have a great draft, pick up a couple of really great players in the offseason, and it can change. I mean, let's face it, they were great in the offseason.
Well, you look at who they drafted too, Quinyon Mitchell. He was heralded coming out of college, and sure enough, ended up making the difference. Cooper DeJean, everyone thought, oh, he can't play corner in the NFL because of his skin color. And he's just not quick
He's
enough.
fantastic.
And sure enough, he's one of the best corners / nickel guys in the NFL right now.
Orem Burks.
The linebacker wasn't even a linebacker.
Yeah.
The guy that had a linebacker wasn't even a linebacker. They moved him from a
Yeah, Nolan Smith.
position. Yeah.
Orem Burks is another guy, right? Green Bay, for whatever reason, never really thought much of the guy, even though he was always making plays. And he's, a guy that they have as a swing guy in the middle of their linebacking core. Yeah, they've hit on just about everything.
You go out, you pick up Zach Bond off the scrap heap, pay him $1.9 million, and sure enough, he's one of the best linebackers in the NFL, and he's about to make a boatload of money.
Shout out high school quarterbacks.
From somebody. So, I mean, you just look at how they build their team and how Howie Roseman builds through the draft, but also adds in free agency, kind of
Saquon
supplements them in free agency. I mean, that one goes without saying.
Got to write a check.
No bigger loser yesterday than Joe Schoen and Jerry Jones when you look at the Saquon
and John Mara.
Yeah, and John Mara.
After that, Hard Knocks.
I couldn't help but think that this will never be the Cowboys until Jerry is no longer calling the shots, because that's just not how he builds a team.
And it may go longer than that. Steven may inherit it and do the same thing.
So yeah,
I'm just going to say, as I've said before, I would have rather seen them keep CD and Micah. I think the money they invested in Dak Prescott is the reason this roster's.
To be honest with you, I think where they went wrong was paying Trayvon Diggs. Trayvon Diggs making $20 million a year right now.
Go back to
do what?
Zeke Elliott.
I mean, they pay the wrong guys.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll have plenty of time to break down the Cowboys into their hopelessness over the next few months. But let's get to the Spurs, who are starting to get a little hopeless. They've lost their last two games by 1 point each. Orlando's had a shot in the air by Wemby, clanked off the back rim to win that one. De'Aaron Fox's shot against Charlotte on Friday night was a digit away from winning that game for him. That comes after they blew a really big lead against Atlanta and had to hold on to win that game. So what do you make of the first three games of the Fox era, which are they're 1-2 in with a point differential of 1 point?
So I'm looking at this with rose-colored glasses, because
as you do,
they're not gonna make any noise in the playoffs, even if they make the playoffs. It'd be great to see them get in the play in. And yes, they should have won two of those three. They should have.
I think they should have won all three.
They should have gone 3-0 in those games. But what we're seeing from Fox is just absolute brilliance in the fact that it's exactly what the Spurs lacked. The plays that he made against Atlanta, the 2 game winners that he made against Charlotte, the one of them didn't count because it was a second late, half a second,
not even half,
2/10 late,
literally 0.2 of a second late.
But the ability to dance that he did to clear with the shot with 11 seconds left was just jaw dropping. And then to find space with 1.4 and get it off, jaw dropping. We're going to see that again in the playoffs next year, the year after. We're going to see the guy. San Antonio Spurs now have a guy they can go to win games the way that DeMar DeRozan used to, the way that Manu used to, where they didn't have that guy. They have him now. He's played 3 games. I'm going to give him some grace. They're trying to figure it out. I think Mitch Johnson, and I don't want to be too critical, but I think it's time to realize that the experimenting is over. It makes me think that this might be a soft tank in that they're experimenting still, which is fine because they want to figure out what they've got. But you know, the experimenting is over.
With the lineup is what you're talking about.
Steph Castle needs to play 30 minutes a game. And if you're not playing Steph Castle 30 minutes a game, you're doing a disservice to the team. Whether that's starting, my starting lineup would be Fox and Castle, Vassell, and either Harrison Barnes or Sohan, and then Wemby. But when you're starting Chris Paul and Fox together, no matter how it shapes up, Castle's getting less minutes. And I think Castle needs to play more. And I think they would be better. And I think it's been proven in the stats and in the final tally that they win more when he plays more.
I think they're limited right now with what they can do because of lack of practice time. I mean, you had a dynamic player like De'Aaron Fox. And I mean, to me, what this has shown just over a very small sample size is that this guy's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what all-stars look like, right? The first game that he goes out and plays with the Spurs, he's 8 of 12 in the first half. Like his first time with a new team, like that shows me a lot. This dude's an alpha dog, right? And he plays like an alpha dog. He's unafraid and he's aggressive, and all the things that they saw in him and knew about him are now here. But how do you blend this in on the fly, on the road with the lack of practice time, right? It's like the other night when Victor missed the last shot of the game where it hit off the back iron. They're running a 2-man game and the whole floor is spread. There's only so much you can do in a limited amount of time. And, you know, if these games are going to be decided in 1-possession games and you got to draw something up, you probably want, it looks like Victor and De'Aaron are the 2 guys that are playing best together right now. That's, again, small sample size, and that might be a horrible take, but
no, I think that was a good look you got.
I mean, it's a
definitely
two-man
did, but I
game
mean,
between the 2 of them.
if you have, you know, if you have other guys that are moving around and doing other things or setting back picks for somebody else, and maybe it's not so, hey, we know the ball is going to go to either De'Aaron or Victor in this if you're the opposition. So, yeah, I just think they need some time. It stinks that they haven't managed to get 1 extra play in those 2 losses.
It just stinks
it's going to take some time.
They're doing this against teams that they need to beat in order to make
They
the
shouldn't
playoffs.
be close against Charlotte.
It's I mean, they get
What's the
Charlotte is one of the worst teams in the league, and you were down by 19 in the first quarter.
They didn't come out to play.
No, they didn't
But-
come out
but
to play, but
here's
they
the
tried
thing.
to win at the end. And then when it comes to Orlando, that's another team that you have to be. They're 7th in the East right now. Yes, they're a decent team that's been ravaged by injury, but that's a team and a game that you have to win if you want to make the playoffs.
What's our conversation today if Fox's shot gets off in time and Wemby hits that shot? Our conversation is, this is a team on the rise and they're so clutch and they're doing this and that. So I don't want to overreact because, yes, Orlando's not great. Neither is Charlotte, but Charlotte, as Chuck pointed out to me last night, has won against some good teams.
Yeah,
They're
they've
very
got some quality,
talented.
significant quality wins.
And they're not, the Spurs are not that far away. And again, I'm not gonna live and die with the 1-loss record this year, because if you take that big picture view, which I'm sure Brian Wright is probably like, Wemby wants to win every game, Ike Wright. But if you're Brian Wright and you're going, I might have the number 1 and 3 picks overall. I might have the 2 and 7 picks in a very deep draft.
But Don, we've talked about this before, that they have to win eventually. They have to start actually winning games and learning how to win these close games late.
Yeah.
That was what was good about that Atlanta game is they learned how to win a close game late. The last, 4 games they've had, there's probably one in there that I'm missing. The one against the
They're
Heat,
really
they
close.
couldn't win that game late either.
Yeah.
It's like all of these games you're losing late, and that was the entire story last year is you couldn't pull games out.
I think coaching comes into play some. And again, not to be critical of Mitch. I think Mitch has done a wonderful job in the situation that he's been put in. But there's times where you question who's on the floor. There's times where you question a head coach who's not getting into the face of a guy who probably is taking too many shots that shouldn't be. And at some point, there's going to have to be a tough conversation, be it with Devin Vassell, be it with Chris Paul, on this is the direction we're going to go, and we need you to fill this role, not this one that you're doing right now.
One thing the last few games have showed me too is they missed when it came to getting size. They've been incredibly bullied when under the basket.
For sure.
True that.
Insanely. In Orlando, they lost the board battle 45-34, 13-4 in terms of offensive rebounds.
They don't have anybody on the roster taller than 6'11" other than Wemby.
They get crushed on the boards. I mean, in Charlotte, they lost 53-38 on the rebounding battle. You're just not going to win games when you're allowing 20-plus second chance points.
But Bismack Biyombo to the rescue.
God.
Hey, one thing, I talk about the coaching. You saw what what's his name, Wagner was doing to the Spurs.
Love him,
Franz Wagner.
But I mean, it took them so long to adjust to that. It was like, come on, they finally did make the adjustment, but it was like,
got to get the ball out of his hands.
That's got to be a coaching thing, right? That they couldn't adapt to, or they couldn't change their defense enough to figure out how to stop that guy.
Sean was saying it on the broadcast. A quarter before they made any sort of doubling effort, he was killing them.
Oh my God,
he was killing them.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose in Washington tonight, then we have to have a real conversation about if this team's trying to win, because Washington has no business winning any games against anybody.
That would be true.
They're 11-point favorites tonight in Washington.
Well, they're on the road
again, which they're 8-15 on the road this season.
Wemby's been sick. He's not playing great. I mean, you look at this box score and you go, God, he's great.
No, not if you look at the Friday night box score, and he was 1 of 9 from 3 and 7 of 20 from the field.
But if you're watching the games, he's tired, and I wish the All-Star break he would just go to Cabo for the weekend, but he's going to be so busy with all the stuff in San Francisco that he's not going to get a real break either.
Quickly on the way out, Anthony Davis gets hurt in his first game as a Mav.
Shocker.
Did anyone else laugh? Like, I feel bad for him because he hurt his abductor, I think, his groin essentially. He's going to be out for multiple weeks, but Nico Harrison just has to be screaming at a mirror in his suite. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the way that guy was playing in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked like he's playing pissed off. And, maybe this is what he needed for his career. But, yeah, it's sad that, this has been the knock on AD is that he's never available.
Anthony Street Clothes Davis. And speaking of playing pissed off, give me a stat line tonight for Luka Doncic in his Lakers debut.
22 points, 14 rebounds, 12 assists.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're looking at the standings. I was a little surprised that the Lakers are in as good a spot as they are in the West. And then to make a trade like this, it'll be curious to see what they do. Is he going to play?
Yeah, he's playing tonight. This is his first game. 9:30 tip.
Okay.
I think that he goes for 40 and that LeBron just feeds him all game long. LeBron's going to end up with 10, 12 assists, and Luka's going to go for 40, 50, be like, yeah.
But he's been hurt.
And then he's going to get on a scale and be like, I don't know what that says. After the game, he's just going to say a big F you to Nico Harrison. That's all we got for today on the Sneaks Cleats podcast. Congratulations once again to the Eagles, and to my wife. I will never have to bring the Super Bowl up again. I'm sorry. That's all we got for you today.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly, Eagles, fly, I guess. No, the good thing about it is I didn't have to hear Red Kingdom 4 times last night. So that was one of the best parts of the Super Bowl.
Let me give you one real quick sobering thought. I did a career day Friday with 4th and 5th graders. Shout out Montgomery Elementary School. And at one point, the teacher looked at me and I said, when were y'all born?
Oh, God.
Okay. And these kids said 2014, 2015. So I asked the kids, do you know, anybody raise your hand if you know who Tim Duncan is? Not one.
That's depressing. What are we teaching kids in school these days?
Right. Okay, but class dismissed. I'm handing out pencils. This little boy walks up to me because they were real enamored by the fact that I had interviewed these LeBron and these people and stuff. So the kid walks up to me and he goes, "Mr. Harris, do you know George Gervin?" And I just got goosebumps. I was like, they don't know who Tim Duncan is, but this kid knows ice. And I was like, how do you know who George Gervin is? He goes, my grandfather is his friend and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes.
You should have pulled out your phone and been like, yeah, here's George and I taking a stroll down.
Yes.
Anyway,
But yeah,
yeah, the
they
fact that
weren't
no
alive
one knows who Tim
for
Duncan
Tim's
is.
career.
That's stupid. Now you're making me feel old. I'm the
Gosh.
youngest one in this room by like 3 decades. That's all we got for today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll be back on Thursday. See you then.